Well, thank goodness we are inching closer towards the death of the NCAA. And as far as I'm concerned, it can't come soon enough. Welcome in. I'm Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports. We cover the Big 12, and we are grateful that you are here joining us on the YouTube channel, on the podcast. And I apologize to our podcast crew. I uploaded the wrong show for Tuesday night, and I realized it Wednesday morning. So if you said to yourself, am I going crazy? The answer is you're not crazy. I'm crazy. It's been that kind of week with the three little ones and the sickness and everything else. But we're here. We're rolling. I won't make that mistake again. And we're glad you're here. Hit that thumbs up on the video on YouTube and make sure you are subscribed. So, big news came down courtesy of Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports on, this would have been Thursday, late morning, early afternoon, somewhere around there. And the report was basically about how we all know the chaos around the portal, eligibility issues, and the NCAA has no cojones to do anything about it. They are a completely worthless organization at this point, and college sports needs its own Doge, and that is where the Power Four conferences are coming together, and they're basically stripping the power away from the NCAA one move at a time. It is years overdue, but I guess I'll say better late than never. So the report from Ross Dellinger notes that basically the Power Four conferences are going to start taking the power away from the NCAA. It's not going to kill off the NCAA, not yet, but what they would basically do is develop a model that would run adjacent and intertwined with the NCAA. This would allow the power conferences to police matters on their own and do away with the NCAA's tiresome, outdated process, investigations, everything else that it takes the NCAA. I mean, it's like the government. It takes them forever to do anything of substance and competence. And I'm just speaking broadly here when I say that. I'm not saying that about you if you're a government employee, but you get the point, right? It's just so tiresome and takes forever and cumbersome. And there's always a reason why something can't get done in a reasonable amount of time. Those days are over. People are sick of that. And the Power Four has to say, our sport is bleeding right now. I mean, I love college football. I love college basketball. These sports are bleeding. They're struggling. The money cannot continue the way it's continuing. The chaotic year-by-year contracts cannot continue the way they're continuing. It's just too much. The tampering cannot continue the way it's continuing. It is a cliche to say, but it really is the Wild West. It's completely out of hand and completely out of control. So Dellinger notes here, and it's a good move for college sports, that the power conferences are now going to be the ones that basically have the power to police athletics and also control compensation. And that's something that just has to happen as soon as possible, because if not, this sport is going to die a very slow death. And I mean that for college football, and I mean that for college basketball. And the reason why it's going to die a slow death is because there's going to be a limit to people saying, wait, I'm going to keep giving you guys NIL money. We're basically buying players on one-year deals. At what point do we say, and I'm all about capitalism, but one of the joys of college sports that at least you kind of thought the players cared about the name on the front of the jersey, right? And I'm not saying every guy that went to your favorite program or went to your university cared about the front of the jersey. But at least there was a perception that they did. They committed there. They stayed there theoretically for 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe some of them left, but you know what? It was no skin off your back anyway. You might have bought tickets. You might have bought booze. You might have, if you could, probably couldn't do it back in the day. But, you know, whatever. You supported the program. But now you're asked for more money. You're asked for more resources. And on the back end, you get less loyalty. Less loyalty than ever. So at some point, that dam is going to break. And I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know if it would take some kind of economic downturn, which I don't foresee, and God willing won't happen, but something is going to break where people just say, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I don't even know who these guys are every year anymore. I just can't keep up. And now you're asking me for more money to go buy other guys. I'm out. So they got to get this thing under control. And I think they're doing it or trying to do it and trying to do it the right way. And that's what Dellinger notes in his piece in Yahoo Sports. So I'm glad it's happening. The sooner the better. And this new entity will basically dovetail with a proposal introduced last month from the power conferences that gives them more autonomy and creates a new division or subdivision within the NCAA. So it's basically more neutering of the NCAA. And you'll have this new nameless entity at this point that will serve basically as a partner, for lack of a better word, with the NCAA. And will change a lot of things: investigations, enforcement, committee hearings. I mean, all those things that are kind of part of the NCAA's framework, they're going to blow up completely. So that's what's going to be ending up happening here. And Ross Dellinger, to his credit, of Yahoo Sports, was the first one to note it. Going to some of your comments here, Stormy Cyclone writes, lawyers are too smart for the NCAA. They lose every case. We need a federal carve-out. Good luck with that. Well, yes, it would be nice if Congress stepped up once in a while, but I'm not going to plan on that either. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to plan on that anytime soon. No way, no how. But the sooner we get rid of the NCAA, the better off we're all going to be as college sports fans. Because right now we are just watching this thing sink and struggle and kind of peter along with no direction. It is a completely directionless sport, college football and college basketball. But at some point, this alternative organization is going to have a name. They will employ a head investigator as well as a CEO or director who will then be in charge of making decisions on things like infractions. And they'll also have, I guess, a plan to figure out NIL deals, what's fair market, what's not. So there's a lot that's going to be happening. And I'll tell you what, a guy I could see being involved in this is Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner. I don't want to lose him. I don't want him going anywhere. But I could see a world where Brett Yormark is part of this spin-off organization that is overseeing college sports as a whole. I wouldn't want to lose him, but I would feel good about him potentially being a part of that because I would know he would have the Big 12's back. But I do think a guy like Brett Yormark, first off, he wants bigger things. He's not looking to lead the Big 12 by any stretch. But listen, Brett Yormark's last job is not going to be Big 12 commissioner. I promise you that. And I say that with all due respect to the conference that I love and that I know many of you love. I'm just telling you, it's not going to be his last job. So is he part of this, de facto commissioner, CEO of this spinoff that will basically run adjacent to the NCAA? I don't know. I don't pretend to have any intel on it. I'm just saying the guy gets it. He's innovative. He's done great work for the Big 12. He's more of an outside-the-box pro sports guy. You need that person in this role. College sports is not your father's college sports. It's not. And I say that as somebody, I could say it about myself. It's not my college sports. I mean, heck, I'm, mid-30s, and this is not what college sports was 15, 20 years ago at this point. It's changing very quickly. So that is just something to keep an eye on as we look ahead to what's to come in the world of college athletics and how this is all going to play out in the months and years ahead. I'm Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports. Glad that you are here as a part of the show. I've got this great Heartland College Sports hoodie on, you can probably see. We've got new merch on our merch shop. I will link to this in the description of the YouTube channel and on the podcast. We've got a lot of other great items on there as well. We've got new gear trolling the SEC. We've got tumblers. Look at that. That thing is looking good. I was told today by my guy Mark, who's running our shop, we might get some onesies on there. I mean, come on. Don't you want to put your baby in a onesie? I may put mine in a onesie. The problem for her is she's going to be a year next month, and I'm telling you, she's a tank and a half. She's 26 pounds at 11 months. I mean, it's getting to be too much. She wants to be held. I can't do it anymore. It's just crazy. Her older sister is 4, not even 4. Her older sister is going to be 4 in May and is 40 pounds. This kid's going to be a year next month, and she's 26 pounds. I mean, she is just God bless her, but she's wearing 2T at 11 months. It's nuts. So I know what I'm getting on that onesie, but you can get yours as well once we get that up in the shop. Once again, that link is going to be in the description of the show. And if you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up on the video and make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and on the podcast. Now, coming up this weekend in the Big 12, there's a couple of very good games to watch on the hardwood. But I'll tell you what, it was kind of a ho-hum week of basketball. Last Saturday was tremendous, right? Last Saturday, we had amazing games. Upsets, K-State, Iowa State, the Tech game over Houston, Baylor coming back against Kansas. We had incredible games. This week was really not an impressive bunch of games. KU blew out Iowa State on Big Monday. On Tuesday, Houston handled Oklahoma State. Tech beat Baylor handily. Arizona over BYU. K-State was a good game against Arizona State. That was really it for great games this week. And then on Wednesday, Cincinnati over UCF. TCU beat West Virginia, and then Utah handled Colorado. No great games. There's a problem right now for the Big 12. And I say this as a Big 12 guy, but there's not a lot of parity. We are in a place right now. It's like the opposite of football. We are in a place right now where we thought the Big 12 was going to have the same kind of parity in basketball as football, and it looks like that's not the case. You look at the standings, and here's what you've got in Big 12 hoops. You ready for this? You've really got a 3-team race. Houston, 10-1. Arizona, 10-1. Tech, 9-2. Then you got to go back 2 games to Iowa State and Kansas at 7-4, and then you have the 6-5 teams, BYU and Baylor. And I'm sorry, I don't see a 6-5 team winning this conference. Do you think really BYU or Baylor are going to come out of nowhere and rip off some massive winning streak and end up winning the Big 12? No, it's really down to 3 teams, and there's still a month to go. That's not where I thought the Big 12 basketball scene would be right now. So to avoid kind of this ho-hum stretch for the regular season, there are a couple of games on Saturday that matter. Well, there's really one game that defines the race in the Big 12 and potentially opens it back up. And that's the late game, 9:30 Central, Texas Tech at Arizona, top 20 matchup in Tucson. Texas Tech needs to win that game to feel like there's some semblance of a race in the Big 12 beyond the top 3. Now, Houston's probably going to take care of business against Colorado. Colorado's 0-11 in conference play. So you might say, well, if Tech beats Arizona, then Houston just looks like a team that's going to run away with it. I'm not going to say that right now. But if you want to see a team potentially come back to the pack, then you want to see Texas Tech upset Arizona on Saturday. And then you got to find some upsets for Houston. Houston does have a stretch here coming up where they've got 3 ranked teams in the span of 4 games. They go to Arizona. That'll be next Saturday. Then they're at Arizona State. Then they're home to Iowa State. Then they're at Texas Tech. 3 road games in a 4-game stretch. 3 games against ranked teams in a 4-game stretch. So if you're hoping to see Houston come back down to earth, then you got to see them slip up at some point during that 4-game run. That's what you got to see. But right now, I mean, this race doesn't feel close. KU has underwhelmed. Iowa State has now surprisingly hit the skids and lost 3 in a row. So you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, is there a 4th team in here? I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say it's Kansas over Iowa State because Kansas is the healthier team. And I just saw them wax Iowa State on Monday night, on Big Monday. But I don't have a lot of faith in Kansas. I mean, Kansas plays K-State on Saturday. I could see them losing that game. K-State's won 5 in a row. They're on a roll right now. They're playing some of the best basketball in not just the Big 12, but the country. So I'm looking at that game, and I'm saying to myself, Well, I think Kansas is the fourth team, but if Kansas State wins that game, nobody should be surprised by any stretch, right? So really, you've got two important games. And by the way, K-State's got to win this game to feel like it's got a chance at the NCAA tournament. K-State fans might be like, if we get to 18 wins, we got a shot. No, you don't. Not this year. The Big 12's down this year. Let's be honest. There's a lot of mediocrity in the Big 12 this year. So K-State only has 3 more games against ranked opponents. They got Kansas on Saturday. Then they host Arizona next week. And then they wrap up the season with Iowa State. That's it. 3 more ranked games. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row in between that with unranked teams. It's BYU, Utah, Arizona State, UCF, Colorado, Cincinnati. Not exactly murderer's row. So K-State fans can't be like, oh, if we lose, we still got a chance if we maybe win out. You got to win on Saturday. You got to win on Saturday, and you got to keep this run going. I still believe it's going to be too little too late for the Wildcats, but if you want to be optimistic, it's got to start with a win on Saturday. There's just no doubt about it. It has to. No ifs, ands, or buts. So now you look around the rest of the conference on Saturday, and it's okay. It's not great, though. It's not. You got the 2 games I just talked about, Sunflower Showdown and Tech in Arizona. You start the day on ESPN Plus with TCU at Iowa State. And how many freaking games can you get on ESPN Plus? My goodness. They're killing us with this whole thing. Jiminy. You got 7 games on Saturday. 5 of them are on ESPN Plus. 1's on ESPN2. That's BYU at Cincinnati. And then you got the Tech Arizona game late night on ESPN. That's it. TCU, Iowa State, ESPN Plus in Ames. We mentioned the Sunflower Showdown. Well, that says I'm sorry. I stand corrected. It says ESPN Plus /ESPN. So we do get the Sunflower Showdown on ESPN. That's how it should be. That's a very big game in this league. It's a great rivalry. That will be on ESPN at 1 o'clock. So I stand corrected there on that game. UCF Baylor, ESPN Plus, Houston, Colorado, ESPN Plus, Utah, West Virginia, ESPN Plus. It's something I've talked about ad nauseum. And I think my guy, Matthew Postins, who is our lead basketball writer, is coming around with me here on this. But ESPN is hurting this conference. ESPN is not featuring this conference. You saw the same thing on Wednesday night. On Wednesday night, the Big 12 did not have a single game on linear ESPN. There was one game on CBS Sports Network. I think it was Cincinnati UCF. But once again, you had most of the games this week on ESPN Plus. Once again, the SEC is better this year. I'll give them that. But still, if you're the Big 12 Conference and this is your TV partner and they're burying you the way that they are, the Big 12's got to raise its hand and say what's going on here. By the way, if you're watching us right now live, pop some questions on the show. I'll do some mailbag here on the fly. I'll do a little Q&A. So drop in your comments and questions right now. I'll react. I'll respond. I'll just do some, lightning round right now. So drop it on Facebook, drop it on YouTube, drop it on X, and I will make sure that we read them right here on the show. So glad that you guys are here. It's still going to be a good Saturday. I mean, heck, we are not quite a month. We're a little less or a little over a month away from Selection Sunday, which is just bizarre to me. But this month always flies by. I don't know about you, but January is a disaster of a month. Everything about it just stinks to high heaven. But when you get to February and it starts getting lighter out and things start to improve just a little bit and it's a short month, I feel like February is just gone, right? And then before you know it, you got the final week of the regular season. You got the Big 12 tournament or whatever conference tournament you're watching, and then you get set for March Madness. So that's what's going on there, and I cannot wait for what's to come. Pete, what do you make of the Virginia opening and the ties to TJ Otzelberger? Not buying it. I know there was an article that was written about on Thursday that suggested that an insider for Virginia athletics says that TJ Otzelberger has emerged as a potential candidate should they opt in from Ron Sanchez, who is their interim coach. Jerry Ratcliffe writing, TJ Otzelberger, who has rebuilt Iowa State, is considered a coaching star on the rise, appears to be a perfect fit for Virginia, much like Tony Bennett was when he was lured to Charlottesville from Washington State. I don't see TJ Otzelberger going anywhere unless Iowa State totally stiffs them and lowballs them. I don't see TJ Otzelberger leaving Ames for Virginia. I don't think Virginia is a desirable enough program. I know they've won a national championship, but I think you can do at Virginia what you can do at Iowa State and vice versa. So unless he just wanted out or the money's stupid, I don't think it's going to happen. Dave asks, which KU team is more real? The loss to Mizzou by 20 or the outmuscled Duke? Well, you could also ask the question about, which team is more real. Is it the team that played in the second half against Baylor or the team that played in the first half against Iowa State on Monday, right? You could make the same case. What if I told you the answer is somewhere in between? And I don't want to be a cop-out here on this, but the reason I say that is because I'm seeing different KU teams in game. Look at the first half of Baylor versus the second half of Baylor. And then look how they come out in the first half on Monday against Iowa State. I don't think they're a Final Four team. I don't. But I don't think they're a team that when they're playing poorly this season, whether it's, the Mizzou game or it's the Baylor game in the second half or anything else, I don't think they're that bad. I just think they're kind of somewhere in the middle right now. I think they are, I hate to sound cliche, but they are what their record says they are right now. They're a good team. You can make the case an above average team, a really good team, but I don't look at them and say, hey, that's a prototypical Bill Self KU Final Four national championship contender. It's just not. Unless he does find a good rotation, but he's still kind of working on this rotation. And he's got Bill Self guys, but they're just not as good as Bill Self guys have been in the past. KJ Adams is not starting on a lot of Bill Self's team. He's like the seventh man on a lot of Bill Self's teams. Dwan Harris is not your stud point guard on a classic Bill Self team. And Hunter Dickinson just hasn't gotten better as the years have gone on, at least the last couple. He just is what he is. In some ways, I feel like I watch him and I wonder what happened to the guy at least from a year ago or even, 2-3 years ago. I wonder where that guy went, right? I mean, that comes to fruition with players all the time. Pete, what do you make of On3 leaving Chris Kleiman off college football's top 25 coaches list? A mistake. Chris Kleiman, you want to talk about somebody who does more with less? And that's not a knock on K-State. It's just a reality. Chris Kleiman is that guy. On3 had a list of top 25 coaches, and Deion Sanders was 7, Whittingham was 8, Kenny Dillingham was 13, Leipold's 14, Kalani Sitake's 24, Matt Campbell's 25. There's just way too much recency bias on this. This is not a top 10 head coach in college football. I don't think Deion Sanders has proven to be a top 5 head coach in college football. And I respect the heck out of what he's doing, but that's just not, he's not that right now. Kyle Whittingham, and heck, you know what? I wouldn't put Kenny Dillingham on that list. He had one really good year as a head coach. He's not a top 25 head coach right now. He may have a top 25 team. Yes, he just won the Big 12. He had a great year. Chris Kleiman has a track record that, Kenny Dillingham would love to have one day. I don't think Kalani Sitake right now you can definitely put in as a top 25 head coach. There's just too much recency bias in this list. If I was going to put guys from the Big 12 in the top 25 for head coaches, I would put Chris Kleiman, Matt Campbell, Lance Leipold, Mike Gundy, and Kyle Whittingham. I'd put those 5 guys in there. I know that Mike Gundy had an awful year last year. How do you have a top 25 college football head coaching list and not have Mike Gundy on it? Because he had one just awful year. But those are the 5 Big 12 names I would have on that list. All right. That's what I would do with that list. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is how you find us covering the Big 12. So glad you're here. We've got the merch shop open. I've got this great Heartland hoodie on. You guys can get it. We've got other great stuff on there as well. The link will be in the description after the show, and we'd love for you to check it out. There's a lot of great things on there, tumblers, tees, whatever you want. Go check it out, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel right now on YouTube and on the podcast. And if you could, drop us that 5-star rating and review. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here as a part of the show, and we'll talk to you soon at heartlandcollegesports.com. Have a great day.